It's time for the Northwoods Cooking Show. Starring Uncle Roy and Miss Callie, the troublemaking dog.
Hello and welcome to the Northwoods Cooking Show. I'm your host, Uncle Roy, and today's episode, as you can tell, we're into the fall. It is kind of warm outside right now, but fall's right around the corner. As far as the taping of the show goes, it's state fair time. But fall's around the corner, and so I have to get ahead of myself, to get the episodes ready for it timing-wise. So today's episode is going to be all on pumpkin. And that's, most recipes say, add a can of pumpkin. I got the big number 10 can of pumpkin. I've had this for a while, and it's like time to use it up. Pure pumpkin. It's not the pumpkin pie filling with all the spices in it. It's the pure pumpkin. So these are going to be very, very tasteful. You can also take and cook off your own pumpkin if you want to. Cut it, deseed it, add a little oil on the outside, a little butter maybe. I would stay away from the butter, just a little oil, because we're going to be cooking with it. Bake that in the oven, cut it into big wedges. Put it on a sheet pan. You can bake it for about 45 minutes or until Pear knife goes in and comes out clean. And then you can just scrape that and save that and throw it in freezer bags, and there you go. Or, just buy the can already made. But some people like to do it their own. Anyway, so let's get on with our first recipe, and these are going to be prize-winning pumpkin scones. These are really nice for a little breakfast. You can take and predominantly you want to eat these the same day that you make them, because then they're nice and fresh. So if you want to, you can freeze them if you want to, and then throw them out for breakfast if you don't have time to cook them in the morning. Or the other thing too is at night, make the dough, pack it up, and because you want to pat it out into like a wedge shape piece. You'll see that as we go along. And put that in the refrigerator, and then when you get up in the morning, just cut it into wedges and bake it right away in the morning, and it's ready to go. And you get hot and fresh pumpkin scones. So let's get started. Now this is different than most scones, because remember, in most scones, it's a quick bread recipe, category I mean. And usually what I've done in previous ones is using the food processor, and all my flour and dry ingredients are in the processor, and you use cold butter. So you have big chunks in there, and then it's all processed together, so it's nice and fine. Well, this is one that's different now. This is going to have 4 tablespoons of butter, but we want it softened. I know it sounds totally against what I normally would do, but in any recipe that you use, you want to make sure you follow the instructions, because they take and make things accordingly. So I got 4 tablespoons of butter here, softened. We'll just put that right into our mixer, along with a 1/4 cup of white sugar. And let's see, put that right into our mixer. Now this is the only part that we're going to take and mix with the mixer, because remember, quick bread, you want to, when you add the dry ingredients, use a wooden spoon. You don't want to activate the gluten, because that'll make them really tough. And then we also need 1 egg yolk. 1 egg yolk in my little dish here. And now we'll just take and mix these up until it's light and fluffy. And generally speaking, that's about 3 to 4 minutes. So we'll be right back. Okay, now we'll take and add 1 cup of our pumpkin. Well, you can tell the difference when it's real pumpkin and pumpkin pie filling, because this is much, much darker when it's just a pure pumpkin. Then we'll just mix this up, just stir that in, put that on low. While that's stirring, in a separate bowl then, because I want to do my dry ingredients, I'm going to need 2.5 cups of self-rising flour. Okay, so you got 2.5 cups of flour, and then we're going to do a 1/2 teaspoon each additional of salt and soda. Now, like I said, this is self-rising, so it has all those ingredients in there, but when making half teaspoon each soda and salt. Quick breads and all the recipes I've ever used, muffins, etc., it predominantly calls for at least 2 teaspoons of baking powder or soda or combination thereof. And so I'm thinking that because of this recipe, it has less leavening agents in the flour than what the recipe wants. So that's why we add a little extra just to give it a little puff, a little bump, you know. And so with the dry ingredients in, I'm just going to mix this in with the flour just so it gets thoroughly blended in. And then we'll just take and put this in with our wet ingredients. So now we'll just put our dry ingredients in. And then we'll just mix these up by hand. And then we're going to pat this out. One thing about scones is the less handling, the better. So you're not activating gluten and you're not going to make it tough then. So you just want to mold this together until it all holds together. So I don't want to do it too much, and that's why we don't do it in the mixer. So we don't want to have a tough rubbery scone then. Okay, this is looking good. Now we'll just pat this out. And you can pat this out into any shape that you want to. Predominant, I mean you can do squares, whatever. Predominantly do it in a circle. And we want to pat this out to approximately 3/4 of an inch thick. Now, if you want to get OCD about it, you can take and pat this out just into an exact perfect circle. You could even use a cake pan or a pie pan to pat into and then turn it upside down onto your countertop and cut from there so you have it perfect. But freeform is the way the English do it, and that's where the scones originally come from, the recipes. But you want it more freeform so that it's not so perfect. You want that little rustic look to it. Okay, now we got that cut out. Then we'll just take our knife and you can cut these into as big or small as you want to. These are kind of wide, so I'm going to go into 8s, into pie shaped pieces. And then we'll put these on our baking sheet, and I got that lined with parchment paper. And then I'm just going to put these scones on top, and I kind of like alternate them different direction so that when they rise and fluff, they don't really touch each other. So you want to kind of an inch or 2 apart. And then we're going to take and just pour in a tablespoon or so of milk. And get the brush. And then just lightly brush the tops of these with milk. And this will help brown the scone. And these are going to go in a 425-degree oven. And we're going to bake these for approximately 14 minutes. Or you can turn one upside down. If it sounds hollow, then it's done. So we'll put these in the oven. And remember now too, halfway through your baking period to turn it around. And then we'll be right back. Okay, now we can go on to our second recipe. And this is going to be a pumpkin pear strudel. This is very simple to make. What we're going to have for ingredients is a half cup of the pumpkin, along with 1 cup of diced, peeled, and cored pear. It's about 1 pear. And dice that into small pieces. And when you buy the pear, if it's on the firmer side, it's okay because you're going to bake it, so it's going to soften up anyway. You don't want to get the real mushy ones, the real soft ones that you can eat right away, because then it's going to get too mushy and it'll be like applesauce. And then we also have a 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of brown sugar and a 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of chopped walnuts. And that's going to go into the bowl then too. And along with this, we also have 3/4 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice. Now, if you don't have pumpkin pie spice, you can make your own with 2 teaspoons cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon ginger, and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. But if you happen to get it, it's already made for you. There you go. So that's 3/4 teaspoon of the pumpkin pie spice. And then we'll just take and mix these all together. For the strudel part, the pastry, you can just get a puff pastry. And you just want 1 sheet. Now I was rolling this out, and it happened to get just a little too warm in here. So my puff pastry was kind of sticking to the breadboard, my cutting board. And so I just pop it back in the freezer for about 3 minutes or so, just to harden up the butter in there. And now we can just roll this out nice and evenly. And you just want to just roll it out enough to blend in the indentations that are there so it doesn't fall apart on you. And then we'll spoon our filling right down the center of the pastry. It goes right into this middle third of pastry dough. And then we're going to take and make a braid, and we'll do it like a fishtail braid. If you remember how I did my coffee cakes, the prize-winning coffee cakes that I won in the first place at the state fair. That's how we do this. It's a fishtail. So let me rearrange the camera so we can get a good look at how we cut this. Okay, now just take a pizza cutter, works out best. And we'll just take and go off in diagonals into the corners. And then we'll go in the center, out. And let's see how wide this is. I'm going to do this in 3s and thirds in between. So I was thinking 2s, but I want more strips, so I want to make it 3rds. So we'll cut 3 ways in between each half. Then we start to fold. Just bring one over and bring the other one over that. And we just go alternating, one from each side. And just keep doing that till you get to the end. And then you just pinch this together on the end here so it doesn't leak out, and tuck that under. And let's pinch this together and tuck that under. Alrighty, now we'll just take an ungreased baking sheet, and I'm going to put parchment on there just to protect it a little, keep from browning quite too fast. My oven is rather hot today. So then we'll just roll this up and bring this up to our baking sheet. There we go. Tucked under, tucked under. And now we'll put this in a 375 degree oven. And this is going to bake for approximately 25 to 30 minutes. And remember to rotate it in the oven halfway through the baking period. And check it after about 20-25 minutes. Don't go to full 30 yet, to see how it's baking, because every oven is different and temperatures vary. So we just don't want to burn it. And we'll put this in the oven, and then we'll be right back when it's done. Okay, and then just before baking it, we're going to take and brush it with a little beaten egg. And then we'll sprinkle that with a little cinnamon sugar mixture. And it's always when you mix this together, you always end up with so much more cinnamon sugar than what you need. So you don't throw that away. Of course not. You save it for cinnamon sugar toast. Makes a nice little breakfast treat. Okay, and then we'll put this in the oven, 375 then for 25 minutes. Okay, now our scones are done. And I'm just gonna make a little icing here. I got, I don't know, about a half cup of powdered sugar and about a tablespoon of softened butter. And just a little dash of milk. Just a little dash, because you can always add more. And we'll just take and just drizzle your scones with the frosting. Now you can, like I said, as much or as little on this as you want to. Personal preference. You know, but predominantly you want like a thin stream going across it, just to give it a decorative purpose to it. And if you're going to freeze them right away, I would hold back from frosting them and just frost them when you want to use them. Because generally speaking, the frosting doesn't really hold its shape when you freeze it. It kind of, gets rubbed off and smeared off. And, oh, I don't have enough room. I think I'm going to have to eat these extra ones. And then these are lovely pumpkin scones. Don't those look delicious? Mmm. Oh, I'm gonna drop them. Okay, and here we have the pumpkin pear strudel. Doesn't that look delicious? Ooh, can't wait to cut into that one. Mmm. Okay, now for our third pumpkin recipe, and we're going to be making pumpkin carrot swirl bars. Oh, it's pumpkin all over here. Pumpkin, pumpkin, pumpkin. Now for the swirl bars, these are going to be made in a 15 by 10 inch sheet pan with the rim on, because this is going to be more like a cake-like bar type thing. So you want to make sure you spray the edges in the bottom of your pan. We'll set this aside. And in the dry ingredients in here now we have 2 cups of flour, 2 1/4 cups of pumpkin, or 2 1/4 teaspoons of pumpkin spice, 2 teaspoons baking powder, and 1 teaspoon baking soda. And then just take a wire whisk to aerate this and make sure it's all blended well together. Okay, that's the dry ingredient. Now for our next part, we're putting in to the mixer, we have 1 cup of white sugar and 1/4 cup of, or 1/3 cup of butter. Now make sure this is softened up so at room temperature. We don't want to melt it and we don't want it hard as rock either. Room temperature is fine. And also along with that, we need 1/2 cup of brown sugar. Now we just mix this up until it gets crumbly, which just takes a little bit. Almost kind of stooshaless type of consistency. So it's kind of crumbly. Okay. And you can see that we got this little crumblies. It's like a streusel topping. Now into this we need 2 egg whites. Remember I saved this from one of them. So I got 2 egg whites in there. 2 eggs. Oh, I did get one little piece of shell in there. Did I get it? Oh, there it is. There it is. Come on. Oh, 2 eggs and 1 3/4 cup of pumpkin. There's a quarter. Got plenty of pumpkin. Big can of it. And there's 1. That's 1 1/4. I want 1 3/4, and then I need the 1/2 cup. All right, so that's 1 3/4 cup. And then we'll just take and mix this together. Because now I gotta get out the food processor. I need to shred up a cup of carrots. We also have 1 cup of the shredded carrots. And this gets just blended in. Okay, now we'll just take and scrape our beater. And we'll add the dry ingredients in. And then this part we'll mix by hand because we don't want to activate the gluten. You're catching on. Yeah, because that flour will get the gluten going and that'll make it really tough and rubbery. And we don't want rubbery, tough cakes. You want that gluten activated though when you're making yeast breads. So then you really want to mix it up. That's why on making homemade bread on the dough hook, that usually goes for about 10 minutes so that all that gluten gets activated so you make good bread. Okay, now that's everything, and we're going to put this into our 15 by 10 inch pan. And get this out of the way here. And we can just pour this batter into our cake pan. And this is a really nice thick batter, but it's very moist. That's what I like about it, is that it's moist. Nothing worse than that dried out cake. Oh, I just hate that. So now make sure that you spread this out evenly to make your bars. Okay, now for the swirl part, we have 4 ounces of softened cream cheese, along with a 1/4 cup of white sugar, and a tablespoon of milk. Now this is going to be the swirl part. We're going to mix this up until we get a nice creamy consistency. And then take tablespoons of this and just plop it anywhere you want to. If you want to work it into a pattern, that's fine. But this is all going to get swirled together. Now, if you want it in a pattern, then you would plop this in a pattern and drag your knife through it like you would on a latte when you get a latte at the coffee shop. How they do the heart on top and with the cream and then run the knife through it to make the indentation of the heart. You can do that too if you want. You know, it's all preference and how much time you want to spend on it. Or you can just take and do like I did and just, you know, plop your cream cheese filling anywhere. And now just take your knife and go through and just swirl and twirl. You can use the end of a spoon, whatever. The object is to get the white cream cheese mixed in with your pumpkin base. And you just want to just have fun with it, swirl and twirl it. You know, go where the biggest hunks of cream cheese are and kind of drag it around. Kind of pull back, etc. Then you can go through it and do even strokes. And maybe even crisscross the other way. So, you know, how you want to do it. But you get the idea of how we can just crisscross the cream cheese. So now we put this in the 350-degree oven, and this is going to go for approximately 25 to 30 minutes or until the toothpick inserted in the middle comes out clean. And then we'll be right back. And here's our pumpkin carrot swirl bars. The cream cheese swirling and twirling in the bar. Almost very cakey-like. And of course, these are the pumpkin scones and the pumpkin and pear strudel. I just cut a little slice off for myself to sample on. So I hope you enjoy today's episode in making pumpkin items. We got plenty of pumpkin here, and I still got plenty of pumpkin left in the can. So with all that pumpkin I got in the can, I can just take a portion off. I'll probably do 2 cut portions in Ziploc freezer bags and put that in the freezer, and then I can just pull and use it anytime I want. I don't want that pumpkin to go to waste. As you can tell, all these treats, and there's still a lot more to make. Tons of pumpkin recipes to do. I even have some from other episodes from last year, the year before. Check them out on YouTube and look up the Northwoods Cooking Show on YouTube and just hit the search box. And it'll pop up, and then just scroll through until you find the pumpkin recipes in the Oktoberfest or fall baking, etc. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. So from the Northwoods Cooking Show, I like to say, eat healthy, be safe, and spread the sunshine. Bye-bye.